The battle for the jeweled shillelagh is on hold. So are we talking on hold like life support or on hold like waiting for another season of Stranger Things? Nico Iamaleava will stay at UCLA, which celebrates the Bruins rebuild, and USC basketball returns to the top 25. Good morning. I'm James. And this is your daily dose of sports and snark for the greatest sports city in the world, Los Angeles. This is the Faithful Angelenos Morning Report. It is December 23rd, 2025, and I have a ton to get out of my system about the pause or the demise of USC versus Notre Dame. So if you like being in the know about LA sports, clickety-clack the like button. Clickety-clack the subscribe button. There's a notification bell. Hit that. It'll let you know when we drop an update. Sharing is caring. Let people know we exist. And by all means, comment. Now, before we go through the news and notes, a quick look at the scoreboard. Columbus 3, Kings 1. Ick. So, we'll go to today. The Lakers are at Phoenix at 6. Luka Doncic is out with a leg bruise. DeAndre Ayton is likely to play, though. Houston is at the Clippers at 7:30. We already know the Clippers are in a boatload of trouble at 7-21. But it gets worse. Ivica Zubac is out for at least 3 weeks with a left ankle sprain. UC Riverside is at UCLA at 1. The IE comes to Westwood to lower property values. And Seattle's at the Kings at 7. So with that out of the way, what do you say we get to the news? One of the most storied rivalries, not just in college football, but all of sports, has been put on hold. Notre Dame, in a surprise, scheduled BYU in what would have been USC's place in the 2026 schedule, thus putting on hiatus a feud that started back in 1926 and was only halted previously due to world wars or a pandemic. The two schools issued a joint statement affirming how important the battle for the jeweled shillelagh is, and that hopefully President Ocasio-Cortez will force the schools to play as soon as 2030. I admit I did not see this coming. I mean, we've been talking about the possibility for months, but I didn't think it was actually going to happen. I figured at some point cooler heads would prevail and a compromise could be reached. After all, that's the point of negotiation. And by the way, Notre Dame needs USC more than USC needs Notre Dame. Or do they? Stand by. Yahoo Sports reported Notre Dame and the Trojans were on the verge of a 2-year extension in November. Here's what happened to spoil the deal. The LA Times reported that the College Football Playoff Committee promised the Irish a spot whenever they finish in the top 12 of the rankings. So USC is like, wait a minute. You guys as an independent school have massive leeway to schedule as many cupcakes as you want, so it doesn't matter when you play the Trojans. You have a solid shot at being at the top 12 anyway. Playing Navy, Stanford, Purdue, etc. So why don't you compromise with us and give us a chance to have a fair break with our schedule? After all, Notre Dame, your own coach said, quote, when? I don't care. I don't care when we play them. Start of the season, middle of the season, end of the season, I don't care, unquote. They do care. Oh, they want that cupcake schedule a lot. So, Notre Dame ran off like Forrest Gump down the highway and decided that Catholics versus the Mormons would be like a civil war for God's love or something. Instead of the battle for the jeweled shillelagh, it could be a battle between the Pope and Joseph Smith. Now, in the aftermath, as you might imagine, a number of scribes dogpiled on Lincoln Riley. Trojans legend Keyshawn Johnson took to the socials and ripped the athletic department. Meanwhile, all Notre Dame athletic director Pete Bavacqua had to do was passively, aggressively play the victim and hint that Riley's a chicken. But Bavak was not telling you the whole truth. Why? Well, first of all, not that it's important or anything, but you cowards at South Bend pulled out of the 2026 game that was already scheduled. Who left who? Golden Dome, Yellow Belly. Y'all cut and ran. The game could have been played, not a problem. You guys pulled out. The fleeing Irish, the same milksops who ran from the Michigan rivalry, ran from the Michigan State rivalry, pulled out of their own bowl game. Yeah, and now they pulled out of the USC game for 2026. Who ran from who? If you guys in South Bend wanted the rivalry so bad, why not play in 2026? You see, this is because, much like a used car salesman, the Irish want no compromise whatsoever. We will force the College Football Playoff Committee to give us a spot. Even if we're not that good, we will force you to accept all of our terms, USC, or we quit. That's the deal. So, let's take the Irish talking points, right? Which, by the way, is one talking point. Well, clearly Riley and USC are scared. That's it. That's the counter argument. And for an emotionally unstable basket case like the entire press corps, that's enough. But if the evidence we have shows us anything, Notre Dame was acting like the kid in the schoolyard who will only get into a fight if you grant them all of their special rules. Oh, you can't hit me here. You can't hit me here. Maybe you can hit me here until it bruises. Then you can't hit me there either. Those were the rules Notre Dame was set, putting everything in their own advantage. If the Trojans were scared, why did they move to the Big Ten in the first place? USC next year plays Indiana, Penn State, Oregon, and Ohio State. 3 of those schools are in the college football playoffs. The only opponent that the fleeing Irish have that even comes close to anybody on that schedule is Miami. So Notre Dame is the real villain here. Because again, the Irish had the flexibility of scheduling that the Trojans did not. The Trojans simply wanted some balance in the schedule. If the Notre Dame game was typically scheduled where it is, there was the distinct possibility of the Trojans having to make 3 consecutive cross-country trips to play ranked opponents, 2 from the Big Ten and Notre Dame. If we take it as a given that winning back-to-back road football games is difficult, who would survive 3 consecutive road games, potentially against ranked opponents? Nobody. Nobody. Not in the SEC, not in the Big Ten. Notre Dame would never schedule 3 consecutive road games against potential ranked opponents. So then you have to say, well, why would Notre Dame not agree to schedule the earlier game? Well, it's because they tried scheduling tougher opponents this season and they lost them both. They lost to Texas A&M and Miami. So no, Notre Dame surely can't play tough opponents. Way too risky. The Irish have to play it super safe and get USC completely on their terms. The rivalry has always been scheduled at Notre Dame's convenience. They want the Trojans to come to South Bend after USC gets in a fistfight with Michigan or Ohio State, while the Irish play Boston College. See, what none of the scribes want to mention is there's only one school with a history of cutting and running. It ain't USC. We previously talked about how the Irish ran from Michigan. I read the report from Yahoo Sports, which falsely claimed, quote, the Irish haven't necessarily shied away from big matchups. Really. The Wolverines would say otherwise. Hell, Notre Dame played Miami this year. That was after Notre Dame ran away from the Hurricanes for decades. If the Irish do not get their way, they back out. They wanted to be in the playoffs. They weren't. They chickened out of the bowl game. Who ended the rivalry? We've already established it. So miss me with this idea of Notre Dame being as pure as the driven snow. Miss me with the idea of who was scared. Miss me with the idea of who cut and run. Let me tell you something, Notre Dame. I grew up Catholic. I still am Catholic. I like being Catholic. I know when Catholics lie. I want the rivalry to continue too. Here's how it comes back. NBC. The Peacock Network just helicopters money to all over the school to the tune of $50 million a year. Do you really think that they're cool with BYU being on the schedule as opposed to USC? The Peacock is going to take a hard look at the ratings 2 years from now and determine just how much of a drop there is, as opposed to the ratings for Big Ten Saturday night. So don't be surprised if NBC mounts a pressure campaign, because network money is a bigger stick than the jeweled shillelagh. I got one more point to make before we shift topics. Some in the press are finally starting to see it my way. And one surprised me, Captain Emo of the LA Times, Bill Plaschke. I'm not right about everything, but I had this topic bullseyed for months. It's on Notre Dame. Let me know what you think in the comments thread. Meanwhile, over at UCLA, Nico Iamaleava is not leaving. He will stay at UCLA to give new coach Bob Chesney a one-man foundation with which to build on. And I'm sure the decision stunned his former team, Tennessee, who he left to return to SoCal. Consider how horrific it must be to play in the SEC if you would rather play for a program that went 3-9. The guy is like, Nico is sitting there like, what? You want me to go back to another team that's supported by a bunch of overall-wearing, mouth-breathing hillbillies? Nah, 3-9? I think I'm going to ride this one out. I don't care how many concussions I get at the Rose Bowl, I'm still going to have more cognitive brain function than anyone in Knoxville, Tennessee. I respect Iamaleava's decision, to be honest. The idea that he left the Volunteers because coming west, he would have had all this money and a soft life. The last thing he had at UCLA was a soft life. There was a bullseye on him all year. Behind that offensive line, he got blasted worse than Jake Paul. Dude was sacked 27 times. Justin Herbert is looking at him going, dude, I feel your pain. The entire offense for UCLA last year was, let Nico run for his life, he'll figure it out. So, I will say Iamaleava mentioned in his announcement he was foregoing the draft. I don't think NFL was a viable option. But if Chesney runs the same offense with UCLA that was at James Madison, it might suit the guy's skill set much better. The Dukes ran something similar to what Chip Kelly ran. It kind of looks like a spread, but there's much more of a threat to run. You all might be wondering why USC basketball went ahead and scheduled UC Santa Cruz on Sunday after making the reasonable decision not to play Brown. Well, here's your answer. The Trojans are now 12-1, and based on record alone, slid back into the AP top 25. They're number 24. Do they deserve it? Probably. I agree the preseason schedule wasn't particularly impressive, but this team is far better than what Eric Musselman cobbled together last season. Chad Baker-Mazara has performed in a manner you would expect because he reached the Final Four last year. And I also like that USC has an actual front court now. They haven't had one since the days of Evan Mobley. The Chargers have officially qualified for the playoffs as a result of the Colts losing on Monday Night Football. But a bigger story is Denzel Perryman. He got suspended for 2 games for a helmet-to-helmet hit on Cowboys receiver Ryan Flournoy. Only it wasn't simply for that hit. The league basically implied Perriman's a dirty player. Quote, repeated violations of playing rules intended to protect the health and safety of players. Unquote. Flournoy caught a pass. He was sitting on the turf. He tried to get up. Wham! Dude had previously been fined so many times for helmet-to-helmet hits. The amount looked like something in the book of Revelation. 66666. That's how many dollars he was fined over the course of his career. So taking money didn't get the point across. Look, guys, I see the hit. I saw the hit. It was late. It really was. All he had to do was touch him. That hit was bad. Add to that he keeps hitting opponents in the head. Yeah, the NFL didn't have much of a choice in the matter. By the way, the Cowboys did score on that drive, so cheap shots are not exactly a free punch. Just saying. Former Dodger reliever Joe Kelly is taking his arm and his pouty face into retirement. Now, he didn't want to use the word retirement. He went on a podcast I don't listen to and said, quote, athletes don't. We just stop effing playing, okay? And then he added, quote, I ain't playing, unquote. So we all reached the end of his thought process. He was a staple in the Dodgers bullpen who tried a comeback last year, didn't pan out. There's one other thing to add. He is one of a growing list of players who would say they would only continue their career if he could play for the Dodgers. Miguel Rojas said the same. So it can't just be the money, guys. These guys don't all make Shohei Ohtani money. It has to be the way the Dodgers run things. But you let me know what you think in the comments thread. Talk to me. Are you team Trojan or are you team fleeing Irish in the potential end of the rivalry? For that matter, what does UCLA need to do to build around their quarterback? And if you enjoyed this update, don't forget to subscribe to Faithful Angelenos. We're talking LA sports every single day. Thank you for watching. I'm James, and we'll be back tomorrow. Faithful Angelenos is a Kian Cortel Queso production. Take care.